and
Listen, I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is Black women. So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be.
Gavin Newsom entered the stage carrying the aura of California's golden favorite. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't there to shower him with praise. She came ready with verbal firepower. With the precision of a sharp attorney dismantling a weak argument, she stripped away the polished shine he wore so proudly, revealing the chaos beneath his glossy image. The governor, often celebrated for bold pledges and perfectly styled hair, suddenly found himself dodging verbal strikes that stung worse than California's rising taxes. This wasn't just lighthearted banter. It unfolded like a full-blown disaster in real time.
Signed up to be a member of Congress. That didn't mean that I was supposed to walk into a position where I'm going to walk in and be disrespected. It's already a hostile work environment being there, and we do have rules. The problem with MAGA is that MAGA does not respect rules, nor do they respect the law. That is exactly why they're all running up to Trump's trial, because he's in trouble not because of some big conspiracy by the Biden administration. He's in trouble because he fails to respect the.
Don't scroll past this. You'll want to catch every second. Before we go further, make sure to tap that like button and subscribe. Now, here's the thing. Whenever California is drowning, burning, or spiraling into another money mess, Gavin Newsom somehow manages to shift attention by joking about how perfect his hair still looks. His biggest performance seems to be offering the nation a flawless shampoo commercial, even in the middle of chaos. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't having it. In less than a heartbeat, she cracked that polished routine wide open. And once she did, she treated the moment like a full plate of political absurdity, picking it apart with precision. She didn't just highlight the weak spots, she pulled them into the spotlight. Like a jeweler inspecting fake gems under a lamp, she revealed every flaw, every trace of artificial shine, and every reason his glittering image was nothing more than a carefully manufactured illusion.
So thank you for talking about what happened in 2021. I was listening in as you were talking to the Rev, and you mentioned the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as we were fighting to get the Freedom to Vote Act passed. Ultimately, obviously, this was the decision that came down to whether or not Congress was going to do so. But at the end of the day, the story that most people don't talk about is the fact that this terrible voter suppression bill actually got a little better. Did it get good? Absolutely not. But they absolutely wanted to take away souls to the polls. There was a benefit to shining a light on what it was that they were trying to do in the dark in Texas.
Jasmine wasted no time striking straight at the heart of it. Gavin Newsom treats his Instagram feed like it's a luxury brand campaign, every caption polished, every backdrop staged, every word rehearsed to sell the story that he's the shining hero of California. But Crockett shattered that illusion. She made it crystal clear. Behind the glossy cover photo lies a state buried under overdue bills and broken promises. His leadership, she argued, isn't the bold rescue it's painted to be. It's more like slapping a bandage on a burning house and pretending the flames don't exist.
My Republican colleagues want to talk about keeping DC streets crime-free. They can't even keep the halls of Congress crime-free, because we gonna talk about this, because I got 24 seconds. My freshman colleague has just been indicted on 13 felony counts, right? But have they exhibited any courage to say, you know what, we will disallow this in our body. We will make sure that we expel.
She opened fire on one of his biggest failures, the housing crisis, and she didn't miss a single shot. Instead of delivering the hundreds of thousands of homes he promised, the reality has been a handful of ribbon cuttings and endless press releases. Bedtime stories dressed up as progress, better suited for worn-out developers than for struggling families. Jasmine nailed the picture perfectly. Gavin, she argued, is the kind of guy who buys a treadmill, never runs on it, hangs his clothes there instead, and still posts about his fitness journey online. California's housing market isn't just broken, it's a playground for the rich, protected, and stagnant. His so-called fixes move with all the speed and urgency of a sloth on holiday, leaving ordinary people stuck in a nightmare.
Listen, I think that the struggle is good because it means that you still have a moral compass. Unfortunately, in the government that we are enduring at this moment, there is no morality. There is nothing but lawlessness, and there is nothing but power grabs at the expense of so many innocent people. And if we are going to preserve our democracy in this moment, this is the way that we have to engage in.
She didn't back down when it came to homelessness either. Despite billions of dollars poured into flashy programs, the streets tell a different story, more tense than ever before. Jasmine compared it to tossing a single bucket of water into the ocean and then bragging about ending a drought. To her, Newsom doesn't treat homelessness like the humanitarian emergency it is. He treats it like a branding challenge. With rolled up sleeves and rehearsed sincerity, he delivers sweeping promises that sound more like bullet points from a campaign website than real solutions. Meanwhile, whole city blocks have morphed into sprawling encampments, so extreme that even disaster relief workers would be stunned by the scale, and yet he continues to frame it as progress.
Absolutely not. Unfortunately, as you also heard from the Rev, there are so many people that feel like the Democrats have not been fighting hard enough. Well, I am here to tell you, as you've already stated, I have been a loud voice of opposition to this regime thus far. We have some of the best fighters that you can find right there in.
And then came his so-called economic strategy, if you can even call it that. Jasmine tore into it without hesitation. Businesses are fleeing California faster than teenagers escaping a family reunion, and Gavin's response? A quick wave and a staged photo on the airport tarmac. The evidence, she pointed out, speaks for itself. The numbers already did the heavy lifting. She mocked his attempts to dress it up, saying it's like bragging about California's values while really just showcasing its talent for losing at economic musical chairs. But she didn't stop there. Jasmine went straight for his environmental record, a place where Newsom loves to costume himself as Captain Planet. The hypocrisy, however, was too thick to ignore. She listed it off like a checklist. Campaign brochures glossy enough to wipe out a forest, gas-guzzling motorcades that could light up a small town, and private jet trips to climate conferences where he preaches about sustainability. In her words, Gavin was an environmentalist who would gladly trade a forest for a photo op.
The way that our government was set up was that it belongs to the people. And I really want the people to really believe that. And so we've seen the town halls. I want you to keep showing up to town halls. I want you to call their offices. I want you to show up to their offices. I want you to be on them like white on rice. And I want you to tell them, play with me if you want to. I will fire you in a heartbeat. And I say, hold everybody accountable. Dems and Republicans. Now, for the most part, I feel very confident about the Dems. For the most part. But hold everyone accountable.
On paper, California's push for renewable energy sounds admirable. In reality, though, it's like bragging about running a marathon after jogging half a lap around the track. Jasmine wasn't about to let that slide, and she wasn't done, yet she turned straight to education. The truth is painful. Test scores are slipping, teachers are scarce, and classrooms are stuck with outdated materials. Yet Gavin spins his speeches as if California schools are cutting-edge research labs. Asmine shredded that illusion with ease, pointing out that you can't fix a broken education system by inventing new jargon and piling on more bureaucracy. Her roast cut deep when she compared his approach to handing a kid an Xbox box with nothing inside, exciting for about 5 seconds until the disappointment sets in. Under Newsom, every failure is rebranded as a lesson learned, every budget hike is dressed up as an investment, and every small win is celebrated as if it were the moon landing. The problem? There's no moon, just a lot of empty promises orbiting around.
We gotta educate folk. We gotta make sure that we are educating them and that we are really getting into truth telling. And that is something that each and every one of you can do. Because as I tell people all the time, and I think I said the last time we did this, nobody wants to listen to a politician. I mean, clearly y'all special people. But y'all got a lot of friends that don't pay.
Jasmine didn't just dismantle his policies, she went after the illusion of authority itself. What stood out most was his remarkable ability to dodge responsibility for everything. If homelessness rises, suddenly it's the city's fault. If crime goes up, he shrugs it off as a leftover problem from the past. And when people pack up and leave California, He dismisses it as nothing more than a national trend. Jasmine compared it to watching a magician pull off a disappearing act, not with rabbits or scarves, but with accountability. The cruel twist is that Californians are the ones stuck footing the bill for his vanishing tricks. He made crime impossible to ignore, holding it up like a trophy for everyone to see. Neighborhoods echo with police helicopters, retail theft has become routine, and tourists almost expect to have their cars broken into. While residents adjust their lives to cope with these realities, Newsom carries on as if he's untouchable, indulging in image and appearances instead of addressing the chaos on the ground.
We saw that we ended up with the Secretary of HUD. There was a black woman, Secretary Fudge, and the difference it made, because from her perspective, she could see that when it comes to housing, they want to devalue our homes, which is then affecting our wealth or our generational wealth. You know, these are things that she understood. But when you have somebody that doesn't understand that, then the system is not going to be changed to make sure that it works for everybody.
You could almost see the smoke rising from how completely Jasmine scorched him. And it wasn't just about hypocrisy, it was about the delusion that no one would notice, or worse, that no one would care. She made it clear this wasn't an isolated slip-up, but a window into how Gavin views his entire role. Her message kept circling back to one central truth. Gavin Newsom's brand matters more to him than his leadership. His political persona is polished to perfection, as sleek and airbrushed as a luxury car ad, but when it's time to actually drive, the wheels wobble and the engine coughs. His so-called legacy is nothing more than a collage of half-finished projects, abandoned promises, and glossy photo ops where the only thing truly perfected is the lighting. By the halfway point, Jasmine had already cracked his golden boy image wide open, but she wasn't finished, not even close. She pivoted straight to his obsession with the national spotlight, pointing out that every move feels tested in swing states rather than tailored to California. It's not governance, she argued, it's an audition. He doesn't chase solutions, he chases headlines.
I cannot wait until voters have an opportunity to say, you took food out of my mouth, you took a roof from over my head, you're responsible for making sure that I do not have health care. I'm gonna make sure you don't have a job.
Jasmine compared his leadership to a movie trailer, 2 minutes of dazzling highlights that never actually appear in the film. Californians have been sold that trailer for years, and every time they buy a ticket, what they get instead is a messy political documentary about how nothing truly changes. Her voice in this roast was impossible to mistake. She wasn't just pointing out that the emperor had no clothes, she revealed that he had an entire team working overtime to make sure no one noticed. Stylists, lighting crews, and PR experts spinning the image. And then came the real mic drop. Jasmine laid out what would happen if Newsom's ambitions stretched beyond California. On a national stage, it would be the same playbook. Glossy promises, big announcements, perfectly staged photo ops, and endless sidestepping of responsibility. Yet Jasmine made it clear she's not about to put the microphone down. If this was only the warm-up, the next round will be even harsher. The roast isn't finished, it's only heating up.
You consistently said over and over the word oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression, and I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression. And so as I sit here as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of classrooms is because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white.
Gavin Newsom has a peculiar talent. He can walk into a room, say almost nothing of substance, and still whip up a storm of arrogance that leaves chaos in its wake. It would almost be poetic if it weren't so destructive. Jasmine Crockett wasn't about to let that slide. She struck a match, doused it in fuel, and held it up for everyone to see under a spotlight. He exposed the core of his act, an entire strategy of political showmanship built on the hope that Californians won't notice the state drowning in red tape and burning, sometimes literally, so long as he looks flawless in photographs. For Jasmine, that was impossible to believe. She reminded her audience that Newsom's best accessories aren't his sleek suits or carefully styled hair. They're his habit of pretending problems don't exist until they trip him up. And she made sure no one watching could miss it.
The importance of it, though, still remains that we have to see what the government did here or failed to do in responding to this tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that this government hasn't realized, or this administration does not realize, is that we are supposed to be problem solvers. And instead, what they continue to do is they continue to break things and make it more difficult for us.
Newsom loves to cast himself as the flawless political hero, the golden boy of the West Coast who can do no wrong. But Jasmine Crockett tore straight through that image. She painted him as little more than a walking Instagram filter, so obsessed with appearances that he glosses over his flaws while ignoring the fact that the foundation beneath him is cracking. Her attack wasn't just about his policies, it was about his priorities. When your state is, quite literally, burning, maybe planning your next celebrity photo op shouldn't top the to-do list. That was the brilliance of her takedown. She unraveled the carefully stitched persona he's built, thread by thread, until nothing remained but the hollow frame. And she didn't stop with the receipts she laid out. She pushed further, calling out his ambition for what it really is. Newsom insists he isn't running for president, but Jasmine made it sound like a tired cliche. The truth, she argued, is that he's already rehearsing, practicing speeches, testing strategies, and running a campaign in waiting right out of his own garage.
And don't want to listen to a politician, but they'll listen to you. And so I'm asking in this moment where everyone is so scared that you be our ambassadors, that you go out and you be the truth tellers and you talk to any and everybody within your circle that will listen to you, and you influence them to know better, to research, and we can heal this country. We can.
He might as well stand in front of a flashing neon sign that reads 2028 every time he delivers a speech outside California. And Jasmine Crockett made that point crystal clear. If home truly were his priority, she argued, he wouldn't be flying into swing states, staging national media tours, or sparring with other governors on the evening news. He wrapped it up by pointing to his headline, grabbing feuds with fellow state leaders, exposing them for what they are, nothing more than a desperate PR stunt to position himself as a national figure, even as California continues to crumble under his watch. UT Crockett wasn't just mocking the theatrics. She reminded everyone that lofty words mean nothing when working class families are priced out of their own hometowns, when public schools are failing despite having one of the nation's biggest education budgets, and when small businesses collapse under endless taxes. Newsom may think he's delivering powerful slogans, but in reality, Crockett showed those slogans are the punchlines.
They are specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say, we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do.
She spared him no mercy on this front either. Jasmine reminded the audience that despite California pouring billions into homelessness programs, the streets show almost no improvement. Yet, Newsom still manages to pat himself on the back for progress. Crockett cut through the spin with a brutal analogy. His approach is like slapping patches on a leaking dam, then holding a press conference to declare the flood fixed. The longer she spoke, the more she stripped away the idea of Newsom as an effective leader. She exposed him as an optics addict, a governor who treats governing like an audition tape and policy like stage props. Her words painted him less as a future president and more as a background extra who wandered onto the wrong Hollywood set. Made her takedown sting even more was her delivery. She had the receipts in hand, her rhythm sharp, and her confidence unshakable. The jokes didn't just land, they rang true. And in politics, that mix of truth and comedy is devastating. It doesn't just bruise the ego, it leaves a mark on public memory that's hard to erase.
We've got to do better at education. People don't understand, but you will understand when those hospitals in rural America start closing down even more. You will understand when you don't have your Social Security. You will understand when your Medicaid, your Medicare goes away. You will understand as planes continue to fall out of the sky. Soon you will understand why it's important to maybe have somebody.
What made her delivery so devastating was its restraint. In politics, opponents often fall into the trap of overreaching. piling on exaggerated claims or theatrical outrage until their critique collapses under its own weight. She didn't. By leaning on understatement and dry precision, she allowed the audience to connect the dots themselves. That choice was crucial because it gave the impression that she wasn't trying to convince them of anything new. She was simply validating what they already suspected but rarely heard said aloud. Newsom's vulnerability wasn't exposed by insults, it was revealed by context. Each line she delivered echoed the lived frustrations of Californians navigating homelessness, rising costs, and deteriorating infrastructure. This is why the room didn't just laugh. They recognized themselves in her words. The satire functioned less like a joke and more like a collective acknowledgement of reality, one that stripped away the protective polish of Newsom's self-promotion. The laughter was a release, but the nods were agreement, and agreement in politics is far more dangerous to an incumbent's image than ridicule. Her roast became something bigger than humor. It became a referendum disguised as entertainment. And that is the paradox of her performance. It entertained the audience while making Newsom appear painfully ordinary, exposed, and unable to control the narrative. Political personas are built on distance, the sense that leaders are just beyond reach, floating above the chaos. By the end of her critique, that illusion collapsed. Newsom was no longer the smooth operator framed by press releases and polished speeches. He was just another politician scrambling to cover failures too large to hide. Once an audience sees that fracture, it is nearly impossible to restore the myth. The man walked in with a reputation, but he walked out with only the echo of his own unraveling.